So you might ask yourself, great, now I know what to buy, but where do I buy it, and how do I understand what all these numbers mean while I'm trying to purchase it? Well, let's just sort of go online and find the best resources possible. So the first thing we want to do, just as a group, I think that it's always good practice to do this, is to just go to Amazon.com. In Amazon.com, you can browse all of their cameras. Now, I'm not telling you to buy from Amazon, but they do have pretty good statistical. You can compare and contrast one to the other. So let's just come into Amazon and where it says in the search bar, type in DSLR camera. And you'll see that it auto-populates and it pops up. And a whole bunch of stuff pops up that you probably don't need. So first things first, let's click on the DSLR cameras button over here on the side. And then we see that we now have a few options that are better for us. Now, if we scroll down, the first one that we see is the Canon EOS Rebel T5 digital SLR camera kit with an 18 to 55 millimeter lens. Now, this is a good camera. It's a good starter camera. I think that that's a pretty good price for it. And you can see that you can get it for used at $309. But that also might not be the camera that you want. Well, first thing we want to do is we want to open this up in a new tab. So I'm going to right-click and then click Open Link in New Tab. That way it's just sort of sitting over here. We can look at it later. So that's $341. That's a good price. If we scroll down here, we get the same. That's a T6. Yeah, so it's a one other version. I'm not going to say better, but it's a different version of the same camera for $5 or for $9 more. Here's a digital Rebel XT DSLR that would work perfectly, and you can see that it's $157. That's actually a really good value for that camera, and it's the XT, so I think that's 8 megapixels. Yeah, 8 megapixels you see over here. That would be a good value for you. The 60D, a good value for you. And so as we're scrolling through this, it just gives you a sense of sort of what prices you need to start thinking about. Now, I'm not saying that you have to buy a Canon or a Nikon. You can buy a Pentax. You can buy a Sony Alpha. All of these are good cameras. In fact, if you want to buy a mirrorless camera, that's entirely up to you. If you want to do that, that's great. Mirrorless cameras, mirrorless technology has come a long way. But you'll have to. But I teach the DSLR, so you'll have to do a little legwork on your own to make comparisons between the DSLR and the Sony Alpha, or the mirrorless camera. So as you're seeing here, there's a lot of different options. Another place that you can go is a website called Adorama, ADORAMA.com. See, there we go. And it's specifically a camera store. Now, these guys are in New York, and they sell a whole bunch of cameras. They have a really great website that you can look at and dig into. You know, they're good professional grade camera resource. In fact, a lot of our videos come from their education side because they do such a good job of specifically telling you how to use certain areas of your camera. But I also want you guys to think about some more local places that you can purchase cameras at. In fact, I always tell my students, go local. It keeps those guys in business. It gives you an extra resource when you want to figure out how to do something. And so our local camera store is called the Camera Exchange. So let's go to CameraAX.com. It's CameraAX.com, or sorry, CameraX.com, CameraAX.com. And these are the local guys. They have brand new equipment, but they also have used equipment that they've already run through the tests and they know it's good. They will guarantee it there in the store. And so I always recommend going up to Camera Exchange on San Pedro Avenue. It's at 6635 San Pedro Avenue, and they can take care of all of your needs. If you want to look at their website, I have it pulled up here. We can go to gear. Wait for that to load. DSLR cameras. Okay, so one of the things I like about all of these websites is I can sort by price, because sometimes I look at the most expensive thing first, and that gets me in trouble because then I want all of those features on everything else I see. So sometimes it's better to sort by price cheapest first, so the least expensive first. And so if I sort by price, now I see that the Rebel T6 comes up, and the Nikon D3400 comes up, and the Rebel SL1 comes up, and these are all good, solid cameras. Let's just click on the T6 with the 18 to 55 millimeter lens. And of course, it doesn't have a price associated with it. It looks like their website needs a little help, but the good thing about it is they are here in town and they can help you out. Okay, so the next place that you might want to think about going is a place that specializes in used equipment. And my favorite of these places is a place called KEH.com. So KEH.com. And if I go to KEH, it's a used website, and so I can shop for used equipment. It's also a place you could sell your used equipment, and I've done both. I've shopped and I've sold used equipment. Okay, so first off, I'm going to shop gear. I can shop by cameras, DSLR. Okay, so if I scroll over cameras and click on DSLR, it brings up a whole bunch of digital single lens reflex cameras. Now here again, I can sort by price, and instead of going high to low, I can go low to high. And we can just see what the least expensive digital SLR camera is that they have. Now, this is where we can get into a little bit of trouble. Some of these older cameras are 6.3 megapixels, and that's great. That was great 15 or 20 years ago, but now, well, not even 20 years ago, 15 or 12 years ago, but now we need at least a minimum of 8 megapixels to print an 8 by 10 image. So I'm going to ask you to restrict your search to only 8 megapixel cameras and up. But as you see, most of those 8 megapixel cameras, anything above 8 megapixels is still very, very purchasable with limited funds. And so the first camera that I'm seeing here that pops up, it's over 8 megapixels, is this Nikon D60, which is a 10.2 megapixel camera. You can see that it has manual buttons and manual dials up here at the top, so I can take full control over it. There's also a Sony Alpha A200, which has 10.2 megapixels, and that looks like a good camera. Right, so we have plenty of options. Just remember that if the camera you don't see a lens on the camera, it probably doesn't come with a lens. So then you'll need to go and buy something like that Nifty 50 that I talked about in the last video. And you'll see that it says camera body only. So camera body is what it says here. You'll want to make sure to buy a lens with that camera. Okay, so let's just find one that I like. I'll click on, let's just click on this guy right here, this 450D, which is a European Rebel XSI, which they just give different numbers in Europe than they have in America, which is perfectly fine. You'll see here that it's coming in as a bargain. That means that it has some scuffs on it. But everything is still working. Everything is still in pretty good shape. I could even put it on a financing program if I needed to, so that I could pay for it over the course of the semester. I recommend not doing that if at all possible, just because debt sucks. Don't go into debt for a class if you can help it. But $126, that's a really great value. Then you could buy a lens. Here's a lens that would fit it for $59. Stay within that type of price range. In fact, customers, as you see here, customers who've bought this camera have also bought the lens and the camera strap and the camera and the UV filter. They buy all that together. In fact, you see here that the UV filter is $6. The camera strap is $6 or $5.40 or $4.49. So it's just something to keep in mind. You need to buy extra stuff to make sure that your camera will work fully and properly. Okay, so that's an overview of some of the best resources or some of my favorite resources on the web that you can go find these cameras at.